Feel the power of Santa Fe's legendary 2900 class Northern. Broadway Limited Imports proudly presents this HO scale brass hybrid masterpiece with road-specific detailing, multiple prototype versions including operating number 2926, and authentic sound recorded from the real locomotive. Choose Paragon 4 sound with synchronized smoke or Stealth Series DCC ready. Bring one of Santa Fe's greatest steam icons to your layout. Order yours from your favorite BLI dealer by September 17th. Your scenery tells part of the story. Scale Signs fills in the details. With thousands of realistic railroad, street, traffic, and business signs, plus custom artwork, Scale Signs brings every scene to life. Find the signs that your layout has been missing at scalesigns.com. Scale Signs, because the smallest details can make the biggest difference. Need a curve turnout that actually fits your layout? Oak Hill Model Railroad Track Supply has you covered with Roadmaster flexible turnouts. Just follow your center line on benchwork, a track plan, or even a scaled aerial image and build the turnout to match your railroad. No complicated jigs, fixtures, or fixed geometry. Roadmaster flexible turnouts from Oak Hill Model Railroad Track Supply. Take 10% off with code FLEX at ohrtracksupply.com. Come see me at the Spring Creek Model Trains booth at the National Train Show in Chattanooga, Tennessee, August 1st and 2nd. For more information, head to springcreekmodeltrains.com. ATLP Extra is our monthly newsletter delivered right to your inbox each month. Sign up for free at atlpextra.com.
ATLP Rewind.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Around the Layout, where model railroaders come to tell their story. My name is Ray Arnott. So glad you could join us. On this episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about mental health in model railroading. And joining me to do that is Dan Dossa. Dan, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much, Ray. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you back. I should have mentioned that. It's been since 2022 that you came on episode 10. We're now recording episode 168. So it's been way too long since we've chatted online. So it's good to get with you and catch up a little bit and talk about a topic that's near and dear to your heart, which is the mental health aspect of model railroading, which kind of ties in with a long career that you've had.
That's correct. I was a psychologist in practice from when I finished my PhD in 82 through the beginning of 2003, when I blissfully hung up my spurs and retired.
And so we're going to talk a bit about retirement a little bit later in the show. But first, we want to talk about, I guess there's two levels of stigma that we're going to be talking about. One is obviously the stigma of mental health and how important it is. And it seems to have come more to light, and I would say in the last several years, where it's being talked about more in the open and the importance of, taking care of yourself, not only physically, but mentally. And then the stigma of model railroading itself. And what's kind of neat is how we're going to tie them both together, how model railroading can help with mental health. But getting that conversation out there has been a little bit of a challenge, I think.
It's good points. And I want to say that I'm not talking about this from a standpoint of mental illnesses. I'm talking about it from a standpoint of our mental health and the benefits to mental health for anybody. In other words, mental health is for everyone.
Absolutely. And it's always great to find our why in model railroading. And sometimes the why is what our passion is, but sometimes it's why we even love this thing and all the benefits that come with being a model railroader in whichever door you walk through. The hundreds of doors that come into model railroading and the key rule. Why don't you talk about your key rule of model railroading to start?
Yes, I have learned. I went to the mountain. I spoke with the wizened old monk there who had lived there in complete isolation and silence for the past 45 years. And I asked him, what is the answer to the right way to do model railroading? And he looked at me for a moment and he said, if you're having fun, you're doing it right. And that's what I come to. I don't care what someone else does if it makes them happy. If they are having fun, they are doing it right. And that fun can vary from person to person.
And I think that's one thing that's really special about model railroading. And I think that's why the community becomes so great, because other communities I've been in that are more sports related or game related, it's competition. So it's always you versus me, and somebody's got to lose for me to win. But with model railroading, there is no win or lose. We all can win. That competition thing, if it starts, you're not heading towards that fun thing. You're going towards taking away. It's about you and what your passion is, and then building upon that without having to knock somebody else down a peg, which it's just an amazing way. And I think that's why we're so connected with each other.
Yes, absolutely. That's, I think, a very astute point that so many of us in this hobby are looking at improving things that we're working on and stepping up to another level, and then to another level, and then to another level. And I find that actually very satisfying and very fun. I'm doing things now that I would have not even dreamed of doing 15 years ago, 20 years ago, because I've evolved. And that evolution is something that to me has been wonderful. As we work our way upward in that evolution, or onward, depending how you like to look at it, sometimes we reach a point where we say, I'm happy where I am. Nothing wrong with that. And sometimes we say, I'd like to learn something else. I'd like to do a little more. Nothing wrong with that either. The cool thing is those doors are always open. I'm 70 years old and I'm going to start looking at getting my master model railroader. I would have never dreamed I would have even made that statement 10 years ago.
You talk about an evolution. Let's talk about you for a little bit, Dan, in your evolution. Talk a little bit about how you've evolved in this aspect of coming out and meeting new people, and then how that's helped propel that evolution.
Glad to. I really consider myself a lifelong model railroader. When I was 1 year old, my dad set up the American Flyer trains in the basement. And I hate to admit it, but I was hooked ever since. So I fiddled around as a kid, as many of us did, and built something that I was very pleased with back then. But, it was probably not all that great by modern standards, but I had fun. And then, as I went forward, life got busier and busier. I always enjoyed the hobby in some form, but I was so darn busy. I really was the stereotypic lone wolf modeler in my little room, working on my little switching layout. Or the only social contacts I had in the hobby were people that I began to recognize from going to train flea markets, and I didn't do anything else. Part of that was me. Part of that was I was so busy with family and career that I just didn't have any free time. Moving forward, as I reached a point where I had a little more time, I began to get a little more serious about my modeling and about the hobby. And I started to make a few connections in the community. And one of the biggest was Thomas Gazer. He's a very, very close friend of mine. I consider him one of my closest and best friends. And Tom opened my eyes to things in the hobby that I didn't know about. And I was just intrigued. And so I began to branch out and become more involved in some of the social aspects of the hobby. And to me, that was a wonderful, wonderful evolution, because now I'm meeting people that, first, I enjoy. Second, that are better at stuff than I am. And third, were willing to share that knowledge with me. Much better could it get than that? I've just gradually worked on my railroad, but I've also become much more active in the model railroading community. And of course, finally being retired, I could pursue that even more.
Let's go back and talk a little bit about the phase before we start meeting people, and how we feel about being a model railroader, and that second stigma that I was talking about earlier in the show, where you start to feel And I think you said even your own words were, I was kind of embarrassed to admit. I think at times, because model railroading isn't the most mainstream hobby. We see, athletics seems to be very mainstream hobby, fishing, hunting, golf. But this model railroading stigma, and I don't know if it's been caused by, I don't even know what it is or the cause, and maybe it's not really important. We just see that people will relate it back to either Lionel trains, because that's the mainstream's only understanding of it, or Sheldon Cooper from Big Bang Theory, or this geeky kind of thing that is a stigma about it. But in reality, it's such a beautiful hobby with so many amazing facets that are really mainstream: electrical, carpentry, art, history, all these pieces that are absolutely amazing about it. We're tying them all together. So I think we're a hybrid hobby, but there still seems to be that stigma. Talk about getting beyond that mentality and what helps in doing that.
Yeah. Well, yes, it's a little embarrassing in certain contexts. The flip side is I don't really care anymore. This is what I enjoy doing. People are allowed, when it comes to their free time and their leisure, to do anything they want. So just do that. If people don't like it, if they kind of shake their heads, kind of walk away wondering, I don't care. I really don't. I think that embracing what we like, this is my precious leisure time. I go to work, I pay my taxes, I mow my lawn, and thus I have the right to just do what I want in my precious, as I used to say, nanoseconds of spare time. So that I think is a huge thing. The other thing is what you said about the hobby in terms of its diversity is absolutely true. This is a very complex technical hobby. There are aspects I know in this hobby that I am never going to master. My big one right now is 3D printing. And I talked to two people up here that do just incredible work in 3D printing. And my first question to these guys was, tell me about your background. And what was I learning? Well, I learned these guys were mechanical designers. They really knew how to do CAD work. They had such a background of complex skills that I realized I'm not going to pursue that. The great news is I don't really have to, because I can do other aspects of the hobby and still enjoy myself immensely. My hat's off to these people because I see them really pushing the envelope of where we could go. And I'll give you one example. The gentleman at our last modelers retreat, he's got a 44-ton Whitcomb switcher, DCC, and a Keep Alive. The 3D printing was absolutely fabulous. But, I forgot to mention, this was N scale.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I said too. Oh, wow, my gosh.
Yeah.
And I was telling my father-in-law about this, and he said, well, are you feeling jealous? And I said, not really, but I'm just kind of filled with awe about what people are doing, where they're taking this, what's out there. This is the golden age of model trains.
Absolutely.
We've got things in my wildest dreams I never could imagine. And people keep pushing this envelope, going for the electronics, the 3D printing, all of these things. It just amazes me.
Yeah. And all of this from really getting your head out there and starting to meet people and going on this. And I think it all really starts with, and getting beyond the stigma, is finding like-minded people, or as I say in the podcast, finding your people. And that's why things like RPMs and regional conventions and national conventions are really great ways to do that. And I believe that's how you started to really branch out and start to head yourself in that direction. Am I right?
Yes. I had a few fortunate happenstances. I moved into my house in 1992, and lo and behold, it turns out my next door neighbor, was a model railroader. And so I met some other model railroaders through him, small group of S-scale modelers, and then gradually reached out, met some other people. Local man here, Gary Friesman, who's a wonderful man, I met a long time back, and Gary did this interesting thing called operations. And I was always interested in the idea of operating a model railroad, but I was working on mysteries without any clues. Gary invited me over to an operations session on his layout. And I will be honest, that, as my friend Mike Jordan will tell you, that was the gateway drug. And I really was hooked. I was really just hooked. I thought, what a great concept. Because as you said, now I'm getting together with my people. And the way I've described it is this. If I go to an op session and I'm together with my people, it really feels like we're a bunch of 12-year-old boys again. We joke, we razz each other, and we're laughing, and we're just having so darn much fun. And I love running trains, and I love the fact that now I don't have to model everything on my layout. I just have to model what I want, because I can go run other things
Right.
on other people's layouts. A couple days ago, I was over at a friend's layout, and I'm running the passenger trains, or the passenger yard switcher on his layout. I'm running a pair of these ancient Baldwin switchers that sound like a can of bolts in a coffee can when you start them up. I'm hostile to DL 109 and stuff. And I don't do that stuff on my layout. I never will. Or I can go to another friend's layout and I can run the auto stack train. I don't get to run auto stacks. There's so much that I get to do, and I get to see my pals.
Yeah. And again, all these amazing things that come from the rewards of the community. But I think the real reward really starts again when you find your people. And I'll tell you, believe it or not, I wasn't the most popular kid in high school, not by far. I was always into the different things. Everybody was into X and I was into Y. Whatever the opposite was, that's who I was. And I have never felt more accepted in my life than in the model railroading community. And I think that's all from, again, I wasn't with my people yet. And it just took me longer period of time to finally find my people. And it's such an amazing thing when you do. And it sounds like you had that similar experience. You had this interest, didn't know what to do with it. And now you have the interest with purpose.
Absolutely. In my work, one of the things that I was very fond of telling people is, especially if I was working with children who had some neurodevelopmental issue, and I would tell parents, look, it's all about finding where you fit. And that fit is different from person to person. And I want to say something about mental health for a moment here, if I may. We often think about mental health as a very narrow bandwidth. If you're healthy, you are this. And what I'll tell you is, no, that's not true. Mentally healthy people are a very diverse group of people. And Freud said it best when he said about mental health, what is health? Love and work. Love, the ability to engage in relationships that are based in emotion, and work, the ability to meet the demands and responsibilities of life. Well, that's a pretty broad set of criteria. So there are people that are mentally healthy, and they have an incredible tolerance for stressful situations. They make dynamite. Emergency room docs, emergency medical techs, people like that. There are people that are highly focused and detail-oriented. They make wonderful engineers and accountants. Which among these is the healthy ones? All of them. It doesn't matter. But it's a very broad category. And one of the struggles, I think, is finding those niches where you fit, where you blossom, where you grow, where you can be happy. And I will tell you, if you're a person who loves playing pickleball, I would say play pickleball.
Right.
If you're a person who loves model trains, I say welcome aboard, my friends.
Yes. Right. Right.
This isn't anything abnormal. This is just being who we are. My nephew has an autism spectrum disorder, and the thing I love is when he was in junior high, he got into band and he found his place. He really found his group of people. He was so happy. And I will tell you, I think that his social adjustment and his satisfaction in life is fantastic. And a lot of it is just he found his people, he found his place. And that's what we all look for. The other thing, and I've mentioned this to other people as well, is we as guys, we're lousy at doing this. We really are, all of us. Mea culpa. We don't forge relationships the way women do. And we're not good at building relationships. So a lot of us, we just relied on our wives to set things up for us socially, or we interacted with people from work or from our kids' activities, whatever. And it's nice to be able to say, no, I can build a group of people that become kind of my family of choice.
Right.
These are the people that I can share things with that I want to, where, yeah, I can tell other people. I can watch carefully to see when they're starting to glaze over, and then I shut up. It's been so much fun because it's amazing the number of people out there that when you start to talk about this stuff, their ears perk up and they're interested. I've always said that almost nobody can walk past the model train layout and not stop and look. Everybody loves miniatures.
Finding your people. And again, going back to that concept and in what you've done, let's talk about actually being able to find that thing, find your people, find where you belong. And when it relates to model railroading and how we go about doing that, because there is a beauty to lone wolf. And I certainly won't take away from the lone wolf to be able to be alone with your thoughts and have your railroad for you. There's certainly a wonderful thing to that. I think that it can be, at least in my opinion and in my experiences, as gratifying to then take what those times alone and then spend it with other people talking about the things that you think about while you're doing that and have somebody on that other side that understands it.
I couldn't agree more. I love that. What you described really captures something very important. Yes, a fair amount of what we do in this hobby is solitary. If I'm down working on my layout, I'm having time alone, but I enjoy that. I enjoy being able to think my thoughts, work on things, and play around with stuff. And I love, the opportunity then to be able to post some pictures online or share it with my wife and say, look, this is what I'm doing. And so it's a sort of a back and forth about all of this, where it's great to have my alone time. It's great to be working on my layout. And yet it's a lot of fun to connect with people who get why I'm doing that and what I'm doing. And better yet, can help me do it better. Because there's a million little things that I will find myself saying, oh, I wish I would have known about that before. Tom Gazer did that to me the other day. I'm working on stuff, and he was telling me about how, well, on those rail joints, if you were to just take your little riffler file and just notch the end of the rails before you solder them together, your joints will be a lot smoother. And I thought, well, that's That's a wonderful tip. Wish I would have known that before I soldered the track together, because now it's a lot harder to do.
Well, where were you, Tom? But yeah, that's yep, exactly. It's getting out there and asking the questions and feeling comfortable to do that. And I think that's one of the things in our hobby we all hold a responsibility to. If we want to see the hobby grow and continue to evolve, I think we all own a stake in being the guy like Tom, to be a guy that is willing to share that information, teach, have the heart of a teacher. And on the other side, have the people that are sticking their heads out, welcome them and then embrace them and then help them achieve their goals. Again, no competition. We all rise together.
Oh man, you just hit something there that, Ray, that I think is so important. I talk about it in terms of be a goodwill ambassador to the hobby. And my joke always is, there are people that build exquisite, precise, exact models. There are people that build elaborate, complex layouts. There are people that love to operate trains. And there are people, unfortunately, alas, I think their hobby is complaining. And I don't want to be a complainer. I don't want to be filling my life with people whose love of this is complaining, griping, or making other people feel bad. My life's way too short for that. So I love the idea of being welcoming, being accepting that people might do something differently than I do it.
Right.
Because the truth is, maybe my way is better. Then again, maybe not. And I'm not smart enough to tell somebody else what's going to make them happy. All I can tell them is find out and embrace it when you do. I had this experience a little bit. I'll tell you, my layout is a 15-foot shelf. And I realized I was involved in ProRail, which is a big model railroad event with operations. And I know unequivocally, this is the smallest layout in this group on the tour when it comes to the Twin Cities. The crew had a ball. And what I found is, don't apologize for what you do. Just embrace it. And if other people enjoy that, that's great. If they say, well, that's not really my cup of tea, that's okay. Perfectly okay.
I'm glad you brought that up, Dan, because I think there is, and I think I suffered through it too, called small layout syndrome, right? Where you feel like you're inadequate, or that you're not keeping up with the big guys with the massive layouts and the double helixes. And listen, I am not putting them down. That is amazing stuff that they do, but it doesn't fit to all of us. And sometimes it just doesn't fit in the season that your life is in. I struggled with it. Go over to somebody's layout. We're running through trains. We're running switching stuff all on the same thing. And then you come over to mine and you got to suspend disbelief a little bit because I'm trying to compress too much. And maybe perhaps I built my layout for the wrong reasons. I didn't build it all for me and then have operators come over and run my layout. I was trying to do more than what it needed to do. I think it's a real thing. And I think you finally, you hit that point that I think a lot of folks need to even hit before they start building it, is understand, who is this for and why am I doing it? And when I figure all of that out, regardless of who else is out there, it's great because it's for me and it's what I want to be doing.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that, because you are spot on the mark. I could not agree more. Build the layout for yourself, not for somebody else. The other thing is, in the United States, we have a bit of the Texas mentality. Everything's bigger. And, all of us, let's face it, we see photos of layouts that are massive. And there's sometimes an implication and that's what you should aspire to. So Ray, when are you going to build your real layout, you know, and
Yeah.
I think that that's unique to the Western Hemisphere. In Europe, layouts are far smaller. Portable layouts, small shelf layouts, switching layouts, that's what they do. Why? They don't have space. They don't have big basements. And we work with the space we had. Now, in my situation, when I bought this house, the whole basement was unfinished. It was pretty nice. However, I did need a little bit of that space for everybody else. So what I ended up with was, though, to me, it was a great model train room. And it was about 26 feet long, about 12 and a half feet wide. Great space. I built a layout in there, supposed to eventually have 2 levels, had a helix, all this stuff. Wasn't that good a layout. But I was pleased as I'm going along with this. Then I met the love of my life, and we got married. And we were putting a family together. And when I originally set up the train room, I had added a closet and an egress window so that it was a code bedroom. And at that point, we needed that code bedroom. So my former layout met a sawzall and went the way of the dumpster. In retrospect, it was a good thing, but that's not what I was talking about. The other thing we did, though, we needed space, storage space. So we took the end of that room and made a second large closet. Well, what that meant was that my train room wasn't as good for trains as it had been, because now I'd cut off one of the big areas of it. So fast forwarding, I get to the point where I had been a few years without a layout, and I decided I'm going to build a layout. So I built a little switching layout out in our lower level family room. Well, then the kids got older, they grew up, they moved away. And my wife said, would you want to move that layout back into your old train room? And I said, no, but I'll sell it and build a new layout. She said, oh, I don't care. That's fine. So that's what I did. But the new layout, the footprint of it had to be smaller because, unfortunately, we still need that big closet in there. And so, I'm working with the space I have. And I think Lance Mindheim said it about modeling the last mile rather than the entirety of a line. And that's what I do. I kind of model the last mile. And I think it works. Do I wish my layout had a little more space? Yeah, but I don't wish it was 300 feet long either. And I realized that because my life has been so busy, my hobby exists to serve me, and so that I can feel good and I can recharge and enjoy myself. And I don't need somebody else's definition of the right sized layout to get there. I just have to do the right layout.
Yeah, and it sounds like a lot of the conversation we've had recently with Thomas Klimovsky in his book, Building the Right Size Layout. And it's a thing about self-contentment and understanding also what you described, the seasons in your life, from being younger and raising a family to career. And I think one of the mentalities that we get in our head is that the layout we're building now has to be the once and forever, and it doesn't have to be. And you've proved that out. Seasons changed in your life, and so did your layouts.
Yes. And as I said, it comes back to the point I wasn't going to make, but since you've given me the opening, I'll take it, that my old layout was the right layout at that time, but I evolved and my modeling evolved. I would never build that layout again. And truth be told, it was good that it was gone because it allowed me to evolve and be free of that. I've said this many times. Everything I learned in life, I learned in graduate school. And one of those was that a gigantic dissertation that tries to do too much is a monster. And so what I said was, if you're going to do a dissertation, take a topic and start slicing it thinner and thinner and thinner and thinner. And when you get it as thin as you can do it, there's your dissertation. Keep it tight, keep it focused, keep it sane. Now, that's how I like to do it. If people want to do a kind of do everything layout, cool with me. I go for it. I do think that in my humble opinion, what you said is important. It doesn't have to be the layout for all time. The other, to me, is, and a wonderful starting place, is to build a small layout, a small switching district to learn skills. Because one of the biggest things that's helped my modeling has been accepting the fact there's a learning curve. I'm not supposed to have known this coming out of the womb. It's like learning a musical instrument. You watch somebody who's accomplished play an instrument, they make it look so darn easy. And you pick one up and it's like, this really isn't as easy as I thought. Well, the same with our hobby. You'll see work that people are doing that is fabulous. They're unbelievable modelers. But I didn't see all the first attempts. And as a modeler wiser than me once said, well, you know the difference between a fair model railroader and a great model railroader. And I said, well, I don't know what. He said, the amount of things that they threw away along the way.
Right.
And I
Absolutely. Yeah, the things you'll never see because they're in a landfill somewhere,
thought,
right?
right. And I had that early on, one of my brutal lessons when I was still modeling an N scale at the time. And I got this idea, I was going to scratch build a grain elevator. And so I buy my styrene and I make up my plans. I lay it out. I cut it out. I get ready to glue it. And I didn't know much about adhesives. But everybody in Model Railroad kept talking about Walther's goo. So I thought, oh, that must be the stuff to use. So I dutifully put it all together with Walther's goo, and not much bracing. Not realizing what happened. The next morning, I came down to look at my work, and this thing had literally just the glue as it cured. Just basically, this thing was a twisted mass of plastic. I just looked at that and I thought, that one went in the dumpster.
And start
over.
But look at you laughing at it now, right? It's keeping that right mentality too, that you're having fun. The lesson that you took from upon high and brought down to us, right? That as long as you're having fun, you're doing it the right way, even if you're not gluing a kit together the right way or whatever it is. It's all part of the learning process. It's all part of the fun.
And nobody's going to die. Nobody's going to go to prison if it happens.
Right.
That's the beauty of this. Put it aside, throw it away, start back over again. Greg Dahl, friend of mine, brought a model to the modelers retreat up here a few years ago. And it was a station he was building. And then somehow, and I don't even remember exactly how, he dropped something on it and it crushed the roof.
No.
And it kind of looked interesting that way, but he brought it just to show it. And I thought,
yeah, good
for you. That took guts. I'm not sure that I really want anybody to see my epic failures, but it's good because that's how we all learned. When I was working, I supervised a lot of PhD students doing clinical work, and I'd be doing an exam. They'd be sitting there shadowing, and they'd say, "Well, you make that look so easy." I said, "Well, when you've done this as long as I have, it's a lot easier. You didn't see how I looked when I was at your point in the career."
Yeah, I think that's a key thing to remember. You bring a valid point that don't get frustrated by what you see and say, "Oh, I'll never be able to do that," because there's a good chance that the person who created that once said that. The difference is they put the time in to get to that point where they could. And if that's something you really want to do, you can put the time and effort into it. Just know what your why is and stay focused and work towards that. And just understand it's not an instant gratification thing. It's going to take time.
Yes. And something you implied earlier in our conversation was the idea that this is a very diverse hobby. There are so many aspects. Some of us have skills in some areas, some have skills in others, but I've yet to meet anybody who had skills in all areas or were as equally strong in all areas. And my real strength is finding people who know how to do all the stuff I don't know how to do.
Right.
But
Right.
that's going to be the case for all of us. And that's kind of also makes things nice because there are other people out there who are resources for us.
So a bit ago, we were talking about seasons of life. And one of the seasons of life that you recently entered, and congratulations to you on retirement. I've personally seen my dad has recently retired, and watching him go through what is really, everybody thinks it's great, right? You just Monday morning, you don't have to get up and go to work anymore. But there's some serious challenges that come with retirement. I want you to talk a bit about that and then talk about how model railroading has kind of helped you in that retirement transition.
Oh, yeah. A great topic, actually. I was looking at some psychological research a number of years ago, and there's an author, and I don't remember their names, unfortunately, but they had developed a stressful life events scale. And, basically, they interviewed a bunch of people and they rank ordered life events in terms of their level of the perceived level of stress. And you can imagine, like, topping up on the list there is things like going to prison. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that'd be pretty big for me, or losing a family member, things like this. Very interesting was as you got into the mid range of that list, one of the things was losing your job. Well, I thought, well, yeah, it's a pretty legitimate stress. The one below it was becoming retired. And I thought that was interesting that they were so very close in terms of how people saw them as far as being a stressor. So part of that is exactly what you said, Ray, our expectation that we have now arrived at Valhalla and it's all roses and wine from this point forward. And I guess for some people it is. And for some people, they find that their life is a vacuum. So let's talk about that for a second. Well, for most of us, work takes up a great amount of our lives. I was in an independent practice, and I spent a great amount of time working and building my career. And I loved my job. I had a great time, but it was a lot of work. And free time was in very short supply. Because we do that, we end up neglecting other aspects in our life because we just don't have time. We're busy earning a living, taking care of work, those things. And all of a sudden we retire. Well, our job not only provided us a living, but it was a skeleton that we hung the rest of our life on. We structured our life this way. And now, skeleton's gone. What do we do? We have to rebuild a structure for our life. And sometimes people go through kind of a honeymoon. They do a bunch of chores around the house, and a bunch of things done that they've been meaning to do. Maybe they take a trip, whatever. And those things are all good. But there is an evolution from being an employed person to being a retired person. And that can even take a few years. Now, I like to say what I found is I was lucky because with the pandemic, I really had cut back to working a part-time schedule. So I would be working anywhere between 20 to 40 hours a week, but it was highly variable. And because of that, I was starting to ease into retirement for a few years before I actually got around to retiring. That did help. The other was that I had things that I wanted to be doing and enjoyed doing. And so I was able to pursue those a little bit more. And when I finally retired, I had meant to retire in 2022. and had to do some more work into early 2023. And then they finally let me go. Finally could get off. Well, the week after I retire, our local division president calls me and says, "Hey, we've got this, our regional convention coming up, and we need someone to take over running it. Could you do that?" And I am so used to saying to people, I'd love to, but no, I can't. I don't have time. I got to thinking, I've got time. And why not? I'll give it a try. It was a wonderful experience. Terrifying, but wonderful. And it was wonderful, really, because I had the dream team of people to work with. And so I was, effectively, I became a project manager on this convention because my crew was doing their jobs, doing it extremely well.
So really, it's like it's a repurposing, right? It's finding new purpose. And it's funny, you mentioned earlier the comment, and it's sticking with me, about this survey there, that this research that says right next to retirement is losing their job. Well, about the time my dad retired, I lost my job, and him and I would have conversations together, and I talk about the stress and the pressure of not having employment, and he would relate. But I was like, I'd have to remind Dad, but you retired. I was laid off. You were retired. You made that choice. But it's kind of in those same feelings of losing your skeleton, as you mentioned, your purpose, and then refinding that purpose, like you found it in being this project manager of sorts for the regional convention and finding new ways to build structure in your life. And you found a way to make model railroading kind of the skeleton, or at least a part of that skeleton.
Absolutely. It's really, I would add, not only does work provide us a structure, but it's a core of our identity. I always think it's ironic. Since I retired, I can no longer call myself a psychologist by law because I'm not. And that one rankled me a little bit, I have to admit. It really did. But I got over it. Now, if I'm not these things, if I'm not a provider, if I'm not a breadwinner, if I'm not this and that, who am I? And we have to redefine that and rebuild that sense of identity. And I Googled retirement adjustment issues just to see what came up. I found zillions of articles about financial planning and retirement. There's little that I found about psychological adjustment to retirement. And I looked at it and I thought the implication you could take away from that is that, well, this isn't supposed to be any adjustment. I'm like, it sure as heck is. We may as well not make any bones about that. And I will tell you, groups like AARP and that, they do talk about this. It's just not as prevalent. And there are so many people that are they find themselves just lost. And so we sometimes get ourselves involved in taking care of a myriad of duties and responsibilities. We'll watch grandchildren, all of these things. But what are you doing for yourself? What are you doing to feel good about yourself? What are you doing to replenish and recharge your energy? What are you doing to refresh? And for me, that is where model trains came in. This is one of the things, and I have other hobbies and interests too, but yeah, I've always loved model trains. I've always enjoyed the hobby. Now I have the luxury of having my financial security in place, and I have some time. That is the shortest and most precious resource.
It's absolutely amazing how model railroading can impact the seasons of our life. You talked about the one you're in retirement, and even as we're younger and in between jobs and everything else. It really is an amazing hobby that can really help give you purpose, give you an escape, give you the social aspect, Just so many beautiful things that come with our hobby. And this all ties in with the question of the month that we asked. We're going to take a listen to those. The question of the month this month was, what was the biggest benefit that model railroading has provided you? We're going to take a listen here and see what's been provided to us. We're going to go to the very talented Butch Eiler.
My name is Butch Eiler. I'm from Abbottstown, Pennsylvania. And my biggest benefit from model railroading is I've been able to travel around to over 100 RPM meets in 15 different states. And the biggest thing is meeting a lot of great people, seeing a lot of great models, being able to sit down in clinics and learn new techniques, and also sit there and teach people new techniques. Just an incredible community. Just a bunch of good guys. Thank you for your time.
And good guys and good gals too. And one thing I can say about Butch, we spent a lot of time socializing, and one of the great benefits of going to an event like the NERPM where I saw Butch last. All right, let's take a listen to Column Day.
G'day, Ray, and everyone from around the layout. Callum here from Western Victoria in Australia. In reply to the question of the month for the biggest benefit model railroading has given me, it would have to be quite simple. I think it's the greatest therapy that you can get. If I've had a long day and I just want to unwind, I can go to the layout room, shut the door, and you wouldn't believe it. All my problems are solved. They just magically fix themselves. It's amazing. And on even more of a tangent, it's also a great thing to keep your mind busy during the day as well. Me being a farmer, I work majorly by myself, driving around in circles in a tractor. A lot of time to think about things, and this hobby certainly keeps you thinking, whether it's trying to fit a new industry into your operating scheme, or thinking about a project on your layout. Just many, many aspects of this hobby to keep you busy thinking about things. Something that crocheting or stamp collecting may not offer. It really is the world's greatest hobby, model railroading. Love the podcast, Ray. See ya.
Well, thank you, Colin. And Dan, that brings a whole new meaning to escape room, doesn't it? When you're able to go to your layout room and completely disappear out of the world, right?
Yes. There's also an important point that we hadn't yet touched on that comes up here, which is the mental stimulation of working on a layout, learning skills, practicing skills, acquiring knowledge, all of these things. As we age, people become concerned about preserving our mental faculties. I'm not going to tell you that this is the way to prevent Alzheimer's. What I will tell you is that we keep our brains active by using our brains, just like our muscles. Learning things, solving problems, solving puzzles, these are all things that keep our brains active. Different groups, they'll talk about, buy this computer program. If you're doing these kinds of puzzles and things on our program, your brain's going to be rock solid. All of that probably works. But what I saw over the years is anything that keeps your brain active is good. And it's a little like exercise. What's the best exercise to do? The best exercise to do is the one that you will do.
Yeah, you're more likely to do the things you enjoy. And,
Yes.
and exactly that, whether it be, exercise of a mental or physical ability. And yeah, model railroading definitely helps keep that brain sharp.
It does keep you sharp. Even building my small layout, there would be these little engineering challenges that would be popping up along the way. And I remember one was I have one industry that has a gate to get into the industry. And so I built this up, put it on the layout, didn't build the gate, just left it because I hadn't figured out how to do it. And then one day I'm down there and all of a sudden I'm thinking, bet if I did it this way, I could make that work. And 45 minutes later, I had an operating gate. It just came to me. But solving those challenges, this keeps us active and sharp and socializing, because we lose often when we retire, we lose a social network, or we don't have much of a social network. This is the place you can build one. And it's where I got to put in my plug for the NMRA. This is a wonderful place to meet people. Yes, it takes a little time to build relationships. That's a given. I won't deny that. It does for everybody. But it's kind of nice to get into a room with people where at least I know everybody in this room shares the same passion that I share. Well, there's a good place to start.
But we'll continue that thought on the social aspect of model railroading with David Honan.
My name is Dave Honan, and I'm from Snoqualmie, Washington. The biggest benefit that model railroading has provided for me has been the friendships rekindled and made anew as I've gotten back into the hobby over the last few years. For example, a friend from Texas was visiting the Pacific Northwest last summer and facilitated my introduction to the owner of a large GN-themed layout. Attending operating sessions there led to meeting 2 experienced modelers who live near me, and the 3 of us now meet for dinner every week. Also, through the ATLP operating crew weekly chats, I've been introduced to modelers from across the US and around the world, and hope to someday to be able to meet many of those folks in person. Expanding my social circle has been very fulfilling and has had the added benefit of seeing more layouts and learning new things as I continue to develop my own plans.
Oh boy, it's almost like you knew David's response was coming, didn't you, Dan?
kind of felt like he was in my head there. Because I'll tell you, I have found old friends. Because of model trains, I rekindled friendships with 2 men that I grew up with, and we used to do model trains together as kids. One lives in Atlanta, one lives in Chattanooga. I hadn't seen these guys since 1970 when we went to different high schools. And one of the guys posted a letter to the editor in Model Railroader maybe 20 years ago, maybe a little longer. I reconnected with him. Through him, I reconnected with the other guy. It's like, wow, this is so much fun. And next year, the NMRA convention is in Chattanooga. The 3 of us are going to hook up there. And I'm really looking forward to seeing these guys.
The beauty of the connectivity that we have in the modern age has brought us friends from around the world, including Robin Felder.
Hi, Ray, and hello to all the listeners of the ATLP podcast. My name is Robin Felder. I am owner and builder of the Jackie Wheel switching layout over here in Switzerland. So for me personally, the answer to the question of what the biggest benefit of model railroading is, I think I would go with the possibility for networking and to meet other people. So for me over here in Switzerland, it was pretty cool to see that so many people are modeling North American, Canadian, and prototypes from the US over here. I had no idea that there are so many people modeling exactly the stuff that I am interested in it as well. And also it allowed me to meet people who are, for example, who are great in building benchwork and others who are great in programming DCC locomotives. And all those people helped me and I helped them with some weathering techniques. And I think the biggest benefit of all the benefits that we have in this great hobby, for me personally, it's definitely meet other people, make new friends, and it allowed me to network and to learn so many different aspects of the hobby, which I am pretty grateful. And I think for me personally, it is the coolest benefit of all the ones that we have in this great hobby. Thanks, and keep on with the great show. Bye-bye.
We'll learn when we have Robin Felder on the show about how he has used that to find his people in Switzerland and found that he's got like people modeling North American railroads right around him. So stay tuned for that.
I've been listening to all 3 of you people so far, and it's like, yeah, wow, they're spot on. They're finding it's more than just the trains. And again, the NMRA has been a wonderful place to meet and find people because it's a gathering group. And I joined the NMRA a long time ago. And on a national level, I get benefit, but it's at the local level, the regions, the divisions. It's worth every cent of my dues and more to be involved and be connected with this great bunch of people.
I couldn't agree more. There are regions and divisions of the NMRA that are absolutely fantastic. I know you're involved with one. I'm involved with a great division here with the Nutmeg Division, and the Northeast region is a strong one. You have the Twin Cities Division, and remind me of your region. What's the region out there?
We're the Thousand Lakes region.
That's right. Thousand Lakes region and the Twin Cities Division. Fantastic. There are some really strong ones out there, and definitely where the things happen in the NMRA for sure.
Absolutely.
Let's hear the response from our friend Dennis Colucci.
Hey, Ray. This is Dennis Colucci from Wabash Falls, New York. And the biggest benefit that model railroading has provided me can only be the community. The quality of this community is beyond compare. The people that are in it are some of the friendliest, some of the most willing to help people that I've ever met. Some of my best friends that I have at this time in my life, I met through this community. People are so willing to share what they know and help people learn and help people improve their own skills, whether it be modeling, weathering, painting, whatever it is. People are willing to talk and share and listen to what you have to say as well. And it's just such an incredible community to be a part of, one that I would not give up for anything. And in the spirit of that answer, thanks, Ray, for building such a great community within the community around your podcast here. Thanks for the show. Can't wait to hear more.
Well, I think that's Dennis brings up a good point, and I thank you for the compliment there. But Dennis is also building his own community, and Paul Stamp is another young one, and it's the new wave of community, and you hinted upon that as well. It's great to be in person, but sometimes that's just not possible. So folks like Dennis and Paul are building these amazing communities through YouTube and through podcasting, and along with myself. There's just so many amazing ways. And you folks with the Twin Cities division in podcasting, there's new technology ways that we all can connect and be together, even when we physically can't be together. And I think that's been an amazing evolution of our hobby.
Couldn't agree more. It really is. And the access to interact with people around the world, how fabulous. What an amazing, amazing tool. And what an amazing experience.
And rounding out our answers is our good friend, Ed O'Connell.
This is Ed O'Connell from Rochester, New York. I would say the biggest benefit that I've gotten out of model railroading has been the chance to meet loads of other people that share a common interest in this wonderful hobby of ours. While I was an individual model railroader in my youth, shortly after college, I joined my first model railroad club and started to meet other people, and they've helped me advance my skills. After a long absence, I returned to the hobby about 17 years ago. And since then, I have gotten involved with the NMRA and participated in many ops weekends or conventions. And I've met so many model railroaders from many, many states all up and down the East Coast. And while I might not see these people very often, when I do cross paths with them, it seems like we just pick right up where we left off. It's a wonderful experience, and I look forward to many, many years of doing it.
Yeah, well, Ed, hitting all those points we talked about earlier, getting out there, meeting people, joining clubs, and getting all the benefits of meeting new people and the social aspect of the hobby as well.
I think you're picking up a theme here.
I think so. I think we've hit on a great theme on this show, a good deep dive and talking about the things we need to talk about, and keeping your mind healthy and out there and socializing and learning every day and using model railroading to be able to do that.
Well, there's certainly plenty to take from that banquet, isn't there?
There sure is. Well, Dan, want to thank you for coming on Around the Layout and talking about mental health and model railroading with us. And I look forward to our next time when you're back on the show.
Ray, as always, it's wonderful chatting with you. You're a great host, wonderful man, and I appreciate what you're doing with Around the Layout. I think you do just a fantastic service to our hobby. And I don't know if people tell you that, but I see what you do, other podcasters also, as providing a service and being a role model and inspiration to people about our hobby.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Around the Layout. Learn more about today's episode, check out past shows, and much more on our website, aroundthelayout.com. Show your support by becoming an operating crew member at aroundthelayout.com/crew. Follow us on social media, aroundthelayout.com/social. And send us your feedback, aroundthelayout@gmail.com. Thanks for hanging out with us around the layout.